We're learning the Maimer lArba Osar. We're on page 160. The last idea that Rebbe explained was a beautiful idea, and that is that the difference between 14 and 15, Yudalit and Tesvav. And the Rebbe said that Yudalit is associated with the word dai, enough, or adequate. I say adequate, where the Gemara says that you need to give an ani, a poor person, their adequate amount. And the Rebbe said, so that type of milui, that type of fulfillment is a limited one. Whereas the type of experience by 15 is Yud K. Yud is 10 and K is 5. It's 15. 15 represents the wealthy, the usher. And over there, it's not about filling what they need because they have whatever they need. It's with affluence, with a tremendous amount, which is the idea of the bracha coming much more than just to fulfill a problem. That's where we're at now. Let's see how he brings it back into the text. 160. We are at the Hine. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7, 8 lines from the top. A middle of the line after a comma. The Hine. The Hine ein oni ela bedas. It says, the Gemara says, who is an oni? Well, you think an oni, someone doesn't have money. There's another idea the Gemara says, ein oni ela bedas. Someone who's poor in knowledge. If they're lacking information, they're an oni. Ve'in oshir ela bedas. And the opposite's also true. Who is an oshir? Who's wealthy? Bedas. Someone who has a lot of information is considered wealthy. It's known now you gotta, upcoming piece, you gotta listen carefully and be a little mathematical. Not mathematical, but organized with numbers and images. There are two ways of das. You know, we have Chochma, Bina, Das. Chesed, Gevura, Teferes, Netzach, Hoyd, Yesoid, Malchus, those are the 10 spheres. The question is, how do the spheres line up in the horizontal or in the vertical? And the answer is there's two ways, both. And depending on how they line up, that's the position in which Das will play its role. Look further. L'pamim, Amidosa tachas chochma bina. Sometimes Das is under, it follows chochma bina. Ulapamim. Other times, Amidosa tachas akeser. Das is not under chochma bina, but Das is under keser. Keser is the crown, right? Chochma, it begins from the mind, from the cup, but there's a crown on top. So the question is, where is Das's position? And this is a discussion in Kabbalah. So Kabbalah says there are two ways. One system is Das follows Bina, which follows Chochma. Chabad, Chochma, Bina, Das. The other way is where Das follows the Keser. In other words, it's even before Chochma and Bina. Says the Rebbe further, "V'zeh tolui ba'ofen klolus seder amidas hasviras." What does it depend on? What do these two ways depend on? The Rebbe says it depends on how you generally look at the spheros. The kashero as the spheros same beseder zeh tachas hazeh. When you organize and look at the spheros as one after following the other, which is, and he says, Sha'aseder hu, that the order is Chochma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tferes, Netzach, Hoyd, Yesoid, Malchus, those are all 10. V'yoz, Amida, Sfiras HaDas, then Sfiras HaDas, hu tachas Sfiras HaBina. It follows the Sfira of Bina. Versus Kasher, Amida, Sfiras, hu Begimul Kavim. If you don't organize the Sfiras in that manner, but rather by categories. Kavim means really lines, but it means categories. Then you get Chochma, Chesed, Netzach, Miyamin. The right side, the middle side, and the left side. So Chachan is the acronym. Chochma starts with a Ches, Chesed starts with a Ches, Netzach starts with a Nun. Chachan. Chochma, Chesed, and Netzach all share a commonality. They're all on the right side. They're all oriented towards the right. Chochma is, that part of the brain that's associated with the right. Chesed is an act of kindness, which is the right. Netzach is endurance, which is the right. Gevura. So you get Bina, Gevura, and Yesod. Bagi. Bina starts with a base, Gimel, Gevura, Yud, Yesod. Each of these three has an association between each other, right? Bina is more intense. The analytical approach is intensity. It's Gevura. It has 1 second, you understand? And Yesod is that way too. Yes, Yonason, go ahead.
You forgot Hod.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Baga. Hod. He's right. Sorry. Hod. Right. Yesod is already Das. Yes, Moshe.
Rabbi Dalton, we know that Chabad, right? Chabad Chassid is Chabad, like we're talking about Chachma Binu V'nas. We know that we've spoken about this many times, that other Chassidus are Chagas. So Chesed and Gevurah Tiferes. How does that relate to what we're talking? I guess the first question: how does that relate to what we're talking about? But the second question I have is that: do the other Chassidus, a Satmar, Ger, Babov, etc., Breslov? I don't know how Breslov fits into this. Do they all consider themselves also Chagas?
Well, the first answer answers your second question. It doesn't. The issue of Chabad and Chagas that we discussed quite colloquially doesn't apply here. We're not talking about that. So I mean that's just to get it. I'm going to go ahead and explain the second thing, but just that's not the discussion. Here we're talking about an Inyan and Kabbalah. Here we're talking about how the Sfiros. So you could be a Chabadnik or a Chagasnik or a Breslovnik or nothing or a Litvak. The Gra, they learn Kabbalah. It has nothing to do with how long my payas is and how wide my hat is, and do I shake away or I'm in stillness? Totally not. And
I understand. We're talking about the discussion we're having right now is let's say
it's universal. It's universal. It's universal from anyone that wants to know about the Sfiros. That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
I understand.
And what we're talking about here is the system of the Sfiros. There's a system. In other words, there's one manifestation. Right? What does Sfiros means to illuminate? They're bright, they shine. In other words, through these 10, the world, it says in Sefer Yetzirah, in the book of creation, the world was created with the 10 Sfiros. God Hashem filtered his essence through these 10 manifestation methods. Chochmah, Bina, Das, everything, right? So the question is, the system that Hashem used, was it in one after the other, or was it by kavim, by categories? And there's a difference, because if you talk about categories, then you're looking at right orientation, middle orientation, and left orientation. So in other words, when you talk about right orientation, you're talking about the three aspects of Chochmah, Chesed, and Netzach, which is right orientation. According to the other system, we don't look at the orientation, the categories, we just look literally how they follow one from the other. I don't want to go into it, but this is what he's getting at. I don't want to spend too much time. Let's look further. So he says, Sfiras Amidas Sfiras Hadas Hutachas Sfiras Abina. in the first way, where the spheres are one following the other, das comes after Bina. The kasher amidas asviris, he begat mukabim. Conversely, when we look at the second manner of organizing the spheres, that it's by categories, chochma, chesed, netzach, miyamin, they come from the right. Bina, gura, hoid, mismail from the left. Das, teferes, yisoid, be'emtzas in the middle. Later on, or now, you could make yourself a little diagram. You'll see this clearly. You'll solidify it in your brain. Oh, zamidas sfiras hadas utachas hakeser. Oh, keser is the crown. If you say that chokhmah follows keser, chokhmah bina das, then das is not associated with keser. Whereas if you look at the categories, then all of the category, the entire right category is associated with keser. That's what he's saying. That there's more of keser in das when it's based on the system of the spheres that's called categories. Bina, gvura, hoid, basmal, yad, ulaylam, then the Rebbe says, but whether you use the first or the second system of the spheros, one thing's for sure. Keser is above them all. That's the joke that Breslov says. Breslov says, we are Keser. You're Chabad. But we're even greater because we're the crown. So whether you divvy up the pile this way or that way, we're always on top. The Sfiras Hadas in Yonah his Chabrus. Sfiras Hadas. So what's Das? I mean, we're making this big deal about Das. Where is Das plugged in? To the right category or after Bina? So the Rebbe says you have to know what Das is. He says Das is his Chabrut. Joining, uniting. Or better said, concentrating, focus. Right? A pair, a father and a mother, the Gemara says, they unite together through das. That's when you have unity in the relationship. It's real joining. You need das. The kasher imedes tachas abina oz das mechaber amoichem amidas. When das follows bina, the first system of the spheros, what does das accomplish? It brings together Chochmah and Bina, which is Ava Aim, according to the Alter Rebbe mentioned in Tanya chapter 3, father and mother, and it unites it with the emotions, right? Das is a component up here. It takes the two above it, which is Chochmah and Bina, and it joins it because of its power of concentration with the Midos. So the Alter Rebbe says, Moshe, in chapter 3 in Tanya, if you want a result, you need to have das. And the Gemara says that. The Gemara says, Ein kishu elu das. If there isn't a kishui, which means the erection, during the unity, the union, it's impossible to have a result, to have an offspring, to have a child, for the woman to become pregnant. You need to have das. You need to have a kishui. It's a Gemara. What pshat kishui? Kishu means forceful, strong, opinionated, focus, concentration, das. And if you have das, you can have a result. What's the result in spiritual terms? Not the physical, the midos. If you want to develop a feeling of love for something, or a feeling of fear, or a feeling for compassion, whatever the midah is, you need to use you have to concentrate. The feelings that come from whimsical experiences doesn't last. It's not solid. It's air. It's a bunch of air. Yeah, it's good for a while. It's good for a show, But if you want something to last, it has to have the element of das that creates it, that's always there to sustain it. And you think about it, you look around, people who I would call bari das, intelligent people, they don't lose themselves from, the hoo-ha. And the hoo-ha could be good hoo-ha, you know what I'm saying? But they stay calm, they stay thoughtful, and with that, they display a midah. Let's say the Rebbe. The Rebbe was a great bardas, and boy was he emotional when it came to speaking about Russian Jewry in the 60s and 70s, and about Mashiach, and feeling someone's pain, right? But the answer is that that's the ultimate of a midah, that it comes from a very healthy das, not when it comes just from, oh, you have mercy on me. You have mercy on me, that today I have mercy on you, tomorrow I find someone else to have mercy on. People many times forget their friends from 20, 30, 40 years ago. That shows that it wasn't a das experience. How could you forget your friend from childhood and teenhood and young adulthood, people that helped you and you helped them, you became so close to them? It should be in your bloodstream. Temporarily you haven't seen them. Okay, fine. But the das is there. So that's what the Rebbe says here. Let's go back to the text. And he says, whether it's the first system, the second system, Kesser is always greater. The Sfiras Hadas in Yonis Chappas, because Sfiras Hadas, its idea is joining. The Kashrei Medes Tachas Abina, when it's under Bina, Oz Das, Mechaber, Amoichel, Midas Das, joins, brings together intellect and emotions. V'hainu shechochma ubina, Mekabel mechitzenis HaKesser. So the question is, Yoni, why does Das need to do it? The answer is because Chochma and Bina only get the externality of Kesser. See, Kesser is the crown. Kesser can say, there's the truth. The question is, how much of the truth have I absorbed and become part of that truth? So from the perspective of Chochma and Bina, you only got the shallow part of the truth. Like I would say, there were people, thousands, who came in and out of Farbrengen. Yeah, they were inspired a little bit here, a little bit there, but they didn't change. I was just thinking about it this morning. A group of people want to maybe Kashabaton, a group of Bali Tshuva, and I'm thinking, how do I bring them from being, fine Shem Shabbos Yidden Bali Tshuva to being like part of the boys? Is it even possible for someone who didn't learn in yeshiva to become so, what's the word I'm looking, inculcated, so as though, this is a difficult task. I tell you from someone on the field who've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and usually it doesn't work. I have not seen it work. Now you could say it's I and the leaders who are at fault, and maybe that's partially true. But on the other hand, it also is yes, Moshe.
Now, when you say it doesn't work, I'm very curious because from my background, I have a lot to say about it, the subject. But when you say it doesn't work, what specifically doesn't?
Okay, I'll give an example. I'll give you an example. We had a Shabbaton scheduled at the Ohel in Elul or several months ago. 25 people were signed up. It was going to be like our best one ever, right? They rent a place, one of the houses, and it's like a 24/7. We're farbringing and learning and dancing and davening. It's very inspirational. It really is. I'm telling you, it's a real special spiritual experience. Okay. when the new variant came out, what's it called? This last one, Omicron. One guy, I'm not coming. A week later, another guy, I'm not coming. And by the time week 2, 3, 4, pretty much, half or more were not coming. So I was talking to one of the gentlemen from Chicago, actually. He's a Baal Tshuva. And he said to me, it's a shame. He says, I'm a Baal Tshuva, and I'm new, I'm not a new Baal Tshuva, but I wasn't raised like you, and I didn't go to yeshiva. I'm a business person, he has a kapota and a beard, he's a lubavitch, but he says, but I understand where you're coming from, and I would like to be there, and I see that these people are not there. And that is that the threat of Omicron is greater to them than being together at the oil for Shabbos. That's what I mean. Like, why for the Bachram 770 or for myself and others who, listen, yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't, I don't know how to say it, but, the Emunah and faith, it precedes, the way of the world, which includes, medical science, on and on and on and on. That's what I mean. That's what I mean, Moshe. And that takes a long time. And it takes not just time, it takes internalization where you really come to a point and you kind of reject the way you were raised and the way you were taught. You reject that, belief in science is stronger than belief in God and Torah. Right? Now, of course, we're going to reconcile Torah with science, but at the end of the day, a yeshiva bacher, the normal yeshiva bacher is going to say what it says in Torah, and I don't care if it's Chassidic or Litvak or Sephardic, makes no difference. The average yeshiva bacher will tell you what it says in the Gemara is emes. What it says in science is not emes. And if it's emes, if we can make it be emes with Torah, cool. And if it can't, too bad. My belief in Torah is stronger. That's what I mean. Yoini, are you following this? You understand what I'm saying, Yoini? You know what I'm saying, right?
Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And this is something that I want to say another thing. Any yeshiva bacher or anyone who grew up in a frum home, in the schmaltz of things, this is what they have. Even if later they fry out or something, they have that. And the story that I told you the other week about the guy, the Lubavitch, who says, I won't eat at your house on Pesach, even though he's not putting on film because his father wouldn't and the parents wouldn't eat that. That's an extreme example of what I'm saying. It's exactly the same example. And it doesn't equal. You don't put on tefillin and you're concerned about, drinking Coca-Cola or water with a hechsher. But we don't need processed foods on Pesach. If that's the way, and it's a mishagas, but it's in his DNA and it can't get out. So the same too, when talking about das. Das is that element where the person not only practically becomes a Baal Teshuvah, and not only behavior, but in mindset, there is what we call, and I've said it, the paradigm shift in the cup, in the head. And the story, a good story I want you to remember, with Mashpia and Lubavitch. His name was Reb Michal der Alte, Michal the old one, because he was still a chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek. And he lived into the Rashab's time, so he was around in 1900. Reb Michal. And one Friday he's davening, and people would come from the colonies and from the cities. They would travel for 2 weeks to get to Lubavitch to be for a Shabbos with the Rashab and the Chassidim. It's full of schmutz. He comes in, it's a winter Shabbos, 3:30 in Moscow, whatever, in Lubavitch, whatever, it's almost Shabbos, it's 1 o'clock, and guess who's in Beis Medrash? One Jew. Reb Michal. His talus is over, said, he's still davening. He's with God. The guy is dirty. Shabbos is coming. He wants to become a little clean. He has no breda. He has no choice. So he knew that this is the mashpia, and he wouldn't disturb him. He wouldn't bother him in the middle of davening. A Jew is connecting and with God. You don't go over and talk to him during that time. He's elsewhere. But he had no choice. So he taps him, and Michal takes off his talus and he looks at him. And he says, what can I do to help you? And he says, I just came from the road. I'm full of schmutz. My shoes are dirty. I'd like to polish my shoes so I have clean shoes for Shabbos. And Michal turns to him and he says, in Lubavitch you come not to polish your shoes, but to polish your head. That's what I mean, Moshe. Yeah. Well, no, but this one, the shoes are dirty. And for Shabbos, you should have clean shoes. But Michal was telling him, where are you? Where are you? Now, you understand, this man was elsewhere at that time. He was with God, but the message is such a powerful message. Why do you come here? You come here to polish your shoes, mean your behavior? You don't need Chabad with that. Go to a literature Beis Medrash and learn Musar or Pirkei Avos and tell you how to change your behavior. Here we're talking about changing your entire outlook about Hashem, about life. Oh, this is a different type of avodah. Yes, now it's your turn, Moshe.
I just want to say, we all know, why is it cholent Shabbos afternoon? Why does it taste so good Shabbos afternoon, as opposed to Sunday night when your wife warms it up for you in the microwave?
Yeah.
Pretty good question.
You know why? I bet you wouldn't expect me to say this. You know why the cholent tastes so good Shabbos afternoon? Because it's been cooking for 25, 26 hours. Slow cooking.
Right.
Slow cooking.
Right. Right.
Time, the taste of everything to permeate every single ingredient, and that it connects with each other. So by the time you serve the cholent, you have this mixture that is so, in a certain sense, so refined, but so permeated, that's why it tastes good. So a person who's to be a successful journey, let's say about tshuva, for that to be a successful journey, it has to be almost entirely a slow, steady process, slow cooking process. For that person who was raised in one lifestyle, to slowly let it, he thinks and he permeates every single concept and idea of Yadus, and then of course Chassidus, etc., permeates his very being. But that takes time.
Right.
It takes time. It's a slow.
Right.
It's a slow.
It's a slow. It's a great muscle.
Beautiful.
I've heard it in the past, but it was good hearing now, and especially if we do the Shabbaton, I'll repeat it, Blinether. Yes, Yonason.
Yeah, we know in Chassidus that the last one, the Chassidus HaKeter is the last one, and the Pnimius HaKeter is Pnimius HaKeter is Tainu.
Yes.
So when you relate to things on a lesson level, when you have to do things, then you could say, well, I have to do it, and I don't want to do it anymore. That's Chesed. But when you get a tainug out of it, and that's Pnimius HaKeter, that's where you really are. That's where your tainug is. You can't get tainug out of anything else. That's where you get your tainug. So it becomes part of you.
Right. So the tainug is the Pnimius HaKeter, correct. Let me see where we are. Let me just finish. Avol, it's the 5 last line on page 160. Avol kasher das oymei taches hakeser on to 161. when you're talking about the second system of the Sfiras, that Das is under Keser, Oz Mekabel Mepnimius HaKeser. This is what Yonason said earlier. Then Das gets not just from the externality of Keser, but the Pnimius HaKeser. Maybe that would be the retort to the Breslover. Anyway. So this is the line that's used in Kabbalah Chevra. When Keser is not counted as one of the 10 Sfiros, Oz Hadas Nimna. Then we enumerate Das as one of the 10. But if Keser is counted, we don't count Das. Hakavona, this means Shepnimius HaKeser Eina Nimna B'minyan HaSfiris. That the Pnimius of Keser is not enumerated amongst the Sfiras. Oz, Hini Adas Nimna. So if that's the case, we do count Das, Shemamshich B'chinas Pnimius HaKeser, because Das draws down from the inner aspect of Keser. V'zel Madregas Osher. Remember, this was a discussion about the Oni and the Osher, the poor and the wealthy. And he says, this is the level of the wealthy. The Oni Bedas, who am shocherat meseder ishtalshus du al yedei duhu dai mechsari. Someone who's poor in das, who's lacking das, they receive just an adequate amount. By we'll give you as much to make you to fill you what you're lacking. But someone who's wealthy, who am shocher shelabaylam ishtalshus, it's drawing down from above the progressive descent of the infinite light. That's what Bir Chometz is. This is, you hear? That's what this is in the phenomenon. The Rebbe is saying that the Bir Chometz experience, to burn the Chometz, it's to burn it entirely from the perspective of a wealthy person. Not that you're burning and getting rid of the problem because you have no other choice. But to begin with, it's not in your consciousness because you're pnimius, you're tainug, you're elsewhere. So when you're elsewhere, it doesn't talk to you. It's like sometimes I remember was a child, was a young teenager. My mother went to a concert in 1975, one of the first concerts or maybe the first one at Brooklyn College that Mordechai Ben David performed. I remember it was and I was a yeshiva bacher. I was, and I remember sitting there and I was so uninterested. And my mother said, "You have to go." My father and all of us. It was Chalamoid Pesach. You gotta go. So mother says, we go. I remember walking out. This is I remember. I said to my father, I said, "What did I go for? I just wasted hours. I have, I don't want to say what was going on there. It was mixed of boys and girls, and I don't want to say more. We'll just leave it at that. It wasn't the most tznius type. That was, in 75. They say he became a Baal Teshuvah afterwards. We'll leave it for another time. But anyway, I just remember, in other words, it didn't talk to me. There's something that talks to you. And it talks to you a little bit more, a little bit less. But there's certain things that it's like, it doesn't talk to you. If it doesn't talk to you, you're not there. That's what he's saying here. The Bir Chometz, the getting rid of the problem, it could be because I'm in the problem and I have to get out of the problem. Or you've come to a position where the whole problem doesn't exist because you're above it. And that's a much higher experience. But the Rebbe says that ultimately is what we're looking to do when we burn Chometz. We should rise really above the problem versus be in the problem and find the solution to get out of the problem. We'll talk more Hashem tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone. Sei gesund. Bye-bye.